Hi, my name is Samantha Noneman, and I would like to talk about my literature review topic on spiritual leadership. So, my thesis statement is nurse managers who practice spirituality and lead from a spiritual mindset are more effective leaders and produce better patient outcomes and workplace satisfaction. I chose this topic because I personally practice spirituality and have seen its positive effects on my interaction with my coworkers and think that it could have the same, if not more, positive effects in leadership, especially in the nursing career field. I was able to narrow my focus by reading different articles, asking for feedback, and taking what I had learned from COM 320. What I hoped to learn from this research was that spiritual leaders do actually motivate their employees not only extrinsically but intrinsically, produce better work from employees, create an environment that is safe, and create an environment in a place of belonging that in turn produce better patient outcomes in the nursing career field. Some key terms I would like to just define before we move on is spiritual leadership as defined by Jahandar Tafeshi, Rizzoli, Atashzadeh, Joworidi, and Kavausi. Spiritual leadership is defined as the values, attitudes, and behaviors that are necessary to intrinsically motivate oneself and others so that they have a sense of spiritual well-being through calling and membership. They also define spiritual well-being as a sense of transcendence, calling, and need for social connections or membership in organizations. Wu, Haider, Li, Wan, Li Bai, Zong, Cao, Gong, Zhang define transformational leadership as recognized as a good way of supporting employees by engaging them emotionally and intellectually. So the way that I will talk about the articles, it will be Article 1, 2, and 3. So the first article, which is titled Nurse's Perspective on Spiritual Leadership, a Qualitative Study Based on Frye's Spiritual Leadership Model by Wandar et al. The major finding that I found was that spiritual leadership can be broken down into categories. After interviewing several nurses and nurse managers and analyzing the data, they came up with three main categories: spiritual leadership, spiritual well-being, and organizational outcomes, which were then divided into 2 to 3 subcategories each, and then further divided into 33 subcategories under those. Spirituality is a complex concept, which it was found after these interviews. In Article 2, which is titled Positive Spiritual Climate Supports Transformational Leadership as Means to Reduce Nursing Burnout and Intent to Leave. The major finding that I found in this article, Article 2, is that transformational leadership and positive spiritual climate as a mediation to transformational leadership retains nurses based on their research. And the third article, titled Spiritual Leadership on Proactive Workplace Behavior, the Role of Organizational Identification and Psychological Safety by Shen, Zhang, Zhang, Chu. The major finding I found in here was that spiritual leadership does create a proactive workplace and empowers employees to solve problems on their own and self-initiate change. And from all three articles, their main theme of spiritual leadership entails vision, hope, faith, altruistic love, belonging, and membership. The strengths of Article 1 was how they were able to analyze the data and create those three main categories with subcategories to better help the reader understand exactly what spiritual leadership was based on the perspective of the nurses. Weakness of the article was the information provided in the article. They did not provide all of the questions that they had asked and all of the responses that they had received from every interviewee. In the second article, their biggest strength in this article was the number of participants. They were able to interview via survey 391 participants and gather a solid amount of data. The weakness in this article is that they only used participants that were affiliated with that institution, so they more nurses in different types of fields such as ICU, ER, trauma, to get a better overview of what spiritual leadership looks in different fields of nursing. And the third article, their strength was how they chose their participants based on their thesis statement. So it was on proactive spiritual leadership affecting proactive behavior, and they chose a career field, the energy career field in China, because this is a career field that actually demands more proactive behavior. So it better help supported their research. The weakness in this article was that they were missing a variable, and that was they didn't include the role that these interviewees had. They included their gender, their education, but they didn't actually include their role in the organization. Some gaps that I found in the research and that I was able to get a hold of, because there's actually not too much information or research done on spirituality, especially in the nursing field, was that I couldn't find research. I couldn't get my hands on research articles that had been done in the United States. So I think that research in the future, there should be more research done in the United States as far as spirituality. And then also broadening the research to different fields, and not just the hospital setting, but also the school setting, because nurse teachers are also leaders, and how that's them teaching from a spiritual mindset and leading future nurses into their career field, what the positive effects that it would have on that. And then in the future, research can also include how leaders can implement spiritual leadership, like specific ways that they can implement spiritual leadership to help better lead their employees and create that environment of healing. So in conclusion, what we talked about was spiritual leadership. We defined some key terms such as spiritual leadership, spiritual well-being, transformational leadership. We talked about the major findings of the articles as far as what the effect spiritual leadership has on employee retention, motivating employees. We talked about the strengths and weaknesses of each article and the gaps. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this below in the discussion post, and I would be happy to answer them for you. Thank you for your time.